Good day, my friend. This is a live presentation from Lionel Legal. I do two primary channels, Lionel Nation and Lionel Legal. And Lionel Legal will be this version of what we are doing. This will be and is, how do I say this, a dedicated, if you will, a dedicated channel to matters which are exclusively legal, though they kind of bleed over a little bit one way or the other. And the most important thing I want to do is I want to tell you about the legal process, because as a practicing lawyer, as someone who has been involved in it for 40, this is my 43rd year, I guess, 40. Yeah, 44th. It's hard. 40 plus years. I got to think about one when you graduated, passed the bar. Anyway, I've always wanted to be able to explain this to people and tell them this is what's going on. This is the reality of what's happening. It's not what you think on TV. It's not whether you like things. It's not whether you think Trump's a great guy. That's not it. That's not what we're here for. That's not what I'm about. That's not what this is about. It's the idea about what happens. What happens to this? So we, of course, invite you here, your thoughts and questions and comments, and we're trying to balance the two between both channels. I have been almost exclusively focusing on Lionel Nation, but now I'm branching out. And I may have a Lionel Nutrition channel too. We never know about that. You never know. In any event, let us begin. The first question is, let me ask this question. Let me rephrase this. Let me ask the questions that you should ask if you knew what I knew. Okay? Good. The first question is President Trump convicted? Now, that may sound as a bit odd to you. Say, well, there was a verdict. Yes. Is he convicted? And the thing that I want to do in addition to all this other fun stuff, rather than me just say things, I want to teach you how to think like a lawyer. And whenever you have someone say something to you, the first question out of your mouth, believe it or not, should be, well, what do you mean by convicted? Define convicted. People will just answer the question. They'll just answer it, thinking, well, do they know what a formal finding of guilt is? The official entrance of an adjudication of guilt is? No. To them, convicted means, well, guilty or something. And the first rule of any kind of any type of consideration, ask yourself, what's the definition? The answer is no. He will be convicted officially when he is sentenced. You must be convicted. A formal adjudication of guilt. Let me give you an example of what it makes the most sense. Let me see if this makes the most sense. And by the way, welcome all, one and all. And thank you for being here. And thank you for supporting the channel. And thank you for always being as cool as you are, as the kids say. Have you ever heard of the following? You have a, You have a ticket, and the cop tells you there's no points on your record for this one. There's no points. What do you mean? Well, there's no points. You won't get any points for it. It's like they'll say like it's a non-moving violation or something along those lines. We used to have this thing years ago in the old days where you would plead no contest, plead nolo to a speeding ticket, withhold costs only, withhold adjudication, not convicted, no points. You were in court, you pled not guilty, you pled nolo contendere, no contest, or as one of my clients called it, no context. I heard no comment, and my favorite, no conscience. The best ever. But so there was not a formal finding of guilt I know it sounds very strange, but that's the best analogy. You dispose of the case. Sometimes there are cases where, in misdemeanors, they withheld adjudication or adjudication, as they say. It's a weird one, but that's what convicted is. It's a formal finding of guilt by the court. Number one. So when he is sentenced, then he will be a convicted felon. A convicted felon. What does that mean? The next thing people got to say is, well, what does that mean? You lose civil rights. You lose certain rights. Your civil right. Now, when you say civil right, what does that mean? Well, the right to vote, the right to possess a firearm, the right to sit as a juror, the right to hold office, all these things you are prevented from enjoying. Well, wait a minute. He can't hold office. What about the presidency? That's different. Remember one thing, my friends. The answer to every legal question is always, it depends. So how does that work? Can he hold office in New York? Not in New York State. What about as a congressman? Well, using the argument, there is a federal statute, specifically the Constitution. And Article 2 of the Constitution says, in order to be eligible as a president, you must, first of all, be, and this is important, 35 years old, a natural-born citizen, and a resident of 16 years. I always forget, is it 16 or 14? I've done this. I have this block. Have the Constitution with you at all times. Let's go to Article 2. Remember, Article 1 is the Congress. Article 2 is the executive. Article 3 are the courts. Let's see. You have to be 35 years. Who shall obtain the 35 years? And this is Article 2. And you must have been a permanent resident for 14 years. No person except a natural-born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall not have attained the age of 35 and have been 14 years a resident within the United States. That's critical because during the time of Herbert Hoover had lived an extended period of time outside of the United States. He was, I think, in the UK, very, very wealthy man. He was into mining and everything. So they're wondering, he had been gone for a long time. You have to be there for 14 years. So that means if you're born in the United States, let's say you're born in Cleveland, and immediately you move to the UK, and you're there your whole life. When you're 35 years old, you come back to the United States, you run for office, and you win as president. That's no good because even though you were a natural-born citizen and you were born here, you were not here 14 years. You did not establish yourself 14 years of residency. Specifically, and have been 14 years a resident. Now, does that mean cumulative? I mean, what if you were a year here, 2 years here? But that's what you got to do. Always read the statute. Always read it. As you know, during President Obama's tenure, we got into some really serious talk about, well, was he a natural-born citizen? I think that issue was moot at this particular point, but people were wondering whether he was, in fact, a citizen. For a variety. How is Ted Cruz? He was born in Canada. And they said, yeah, but his parents are here. I say, what difference does that make? I don't understand what that, I'm not sure. I thought if you're born here, that's it, period. End of discussion. If you're born here, you're an American citizen. Well, maybe not. Mitt Romney's father Mitt Romney's father, by the way, interestingly enough, was born in Chihuahua, Mexico, on a Mormon something or other, a Mormon, I forget what it was, and he might not have been eligible. John McCain was born, I think, in the Panama Canal or on a ship or something. So there's all kinds of things like that. But the bottom line is simply this: a conviction, either in the state of New York or Florida, will not disconnect Mr. President Trump from being president. So that's it. What about the other things? What about a right to possess a firearm? It gets a little tricky. That's a weird thing. Now, he is a resident of New York. And that means his vice president he's a resident of Florida now. His vice president cannot be from Florida either. So somebody else has got to be. Remember Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was a member of Texas, lived in Texas, but then he moved to, quote, Wyoming. He was whatever. Ron DeSantis has told President Trump, don't worry, we'll take care of this. I pretty much run the show. New York will, for the most part, New York will defer to Florida. Florida defers back and forth. It is a mess. They can pass special legislation. They can do all kinds of things. But if President Trump or like anybody else, you cannot possess a firearm. Period. That's the worst part. Restoration of civil rights, the right to vote, hold office, serve as a juror, all that stuff is pretty much pro forma after a period of time. So for the time being, I don't want to go through all the specifics. I don't think anybody really cares about that. I wish the president the best. That's not his issue. The problem is, what if he is convicted again? Now he doesn't have a clean record. Now he is a convicted felon. And that's a different story. That's a different story. Now the good news. The good news. Number one. The good news is, of the 4 charges available, criminal, they are almost all evaporating, if not gone completely. The first case involving January the 6th, that particular instance in Washington, that has been pretty much on hold for a while and will most probably be perpetually on hold because of the Supreme Court determining the issue of immunity. The argument is that did the president somehow, by virtue of his words, incite, encourage behavior? I don't believe so. And the reason why is for simply this. There was a case of 1969, I believe, Brandenburg against Ohio. Very, very important case. And it said specifically it dealt with the issue of a Klansman. It was a Klansman at a Klan rally, and he was saying some pretty terrible stuff. Pretty nasty stuff, pretty racist stuff, pretty wild. Like, whoa, wait a minute. This is weird here. This is strange stuff that's going on. The Supreme Court said, basically, to paraphrase, unless the particular speech was designed to cause, to inspire, to bring about immediate violence that would be imminent, where people would be likely to listen to act accordingly. That's one thing. Merely saying things that's horrible and terrible, that's not going to cut it. So the good news is for the president, that's not it. So the January 6th case, forget it. The Mar-a-Lago Papers case is a complete and total waste of time. A complete and total waste of time. Jack Smith has derailed that baby to the point of it's done. It's finished. It is a waste of time. Truly, a waste of time. Judge Cannon, I believe, she basically said, we're going to investigate you now. Did you deliberately change things? Did you Did you fudge the records? Did you fudge these things? These are issues which are extremely critical for people to realize. Our good friend Bradley Opland says, what do you know about nationality conflict? My daughter was born in the U.S., but her mother is a Chinese citizen. Anchor baby, what about the border? She was born in the U.S., but her mother is a Chinese citizen. Bradley, first of all, thank you. I would say to you right now, number one, this is probably you should, I hate to say this, consult with somebody who's into immigration. I would say, just intuitively, do not hold me to this, but you are born in the United States. Anchor baby, I think that's a word that's, I don't think it matters. In the United States, we have these things called, well, not anchor, maybe anchor, but tourism, where women will come to the United States from China in their last throes, if you will, their last period of pregnancy, planning to be born here. You are an American citizen. There are people who are great Americans whose families were born in Italy. They come to this country in the early 19 whatever period of time, and they're American citizens. I think she's a U.S. excuse me, citizen. Anchor babies, things like that. I don't know about that. I think she is. That's what I would think. You're born here. And the idea that, well, both parents have to be born. No, I don't think so. It's a very interesting thing. There's immigration is such a, oh my God, one of these things that an area of law that I have. It's so funny. There's a place where I used to go to. So where Anthony, my good friend Anthony Cumia, had his show, his show station, whatever you want to call it, studio. It was in a place where it was in this building where they had on his floor. It was immigration. It was an immigration lawyer, and this place was packed. Very, very form related, but people from all over the world. And anyway, it's a fascinating issue. And thank you, by the way, for that. The next point, the next issue is, what is he going to do? Who believes that Trump is going to be sentenced to prison? Now, let me ask you that question. Listen to me carefully. I'm going to use a term of art. Prison. Sentenced to prison. What does that mean? What does being sentenced to prison mean? I didn't say a prison. I said prison. What do you think? What saith you? Now, most people will start the analysis like this. I like Trump. I don't understand the particular reason why. I can't imagine anybody actually sentencing him to prison. I find the whole notion disgusting. So because I find it to be problematic, I will immediately say, no, he can't be. Can the president of the United States, if ever, be sentenced to prison? Yes, he can. Of course he can. Will he? Well, it depends. What do I think is going to happen? Before we get to what's going to happen, let me tell you what he's going to have to do. And I don't know if he can do this. So listen to me very carefully. Number one, if you're anybody else, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to meet at some particular point with a probation officer. Charlie Calais says, U.S. service members have married people from overseas. That's never a problem. You know, Charlie, one of the issues is that, and thank you, by the way, for your kindness. One of the issues, Charlie, is that I have a friend of mine who says, if you think that you can just marry some woman and she's an American citizen, you're nuts. I said, well, I thought it was automatic. Nope. So I don't know. And I don't know if that speeds anything. I could not tell you. It is not my area of expertise. I have no. If you think that just marrying them, So, Charlie, if Brad, if you were my clients, I'm going to say, we're going to go now. I mean, you are convicted or you've been found guilty. We're going to go to the probation office or the court office, and we're going to talk with some civil service person. And I want you to wear a suit and a tie. And I want you to be the most deferential person this person has ever met. I want you to be just. I want the person to be able to say, well, which one's the lawyer and which one's, there you go. And I want you to sit down and be the most respectful, because the Judge Mershon, will give great amount of weight to what this probation person says. Absolutely. And it's critical that you act the nicest. Because if this person does not like you, and probably doesn't, President Trump, that doesn't help you at all. Okay? Okay. And I believe that Trump can probably wow them, because believe it or not, Trump has a way of speaking to people, especially ordinary folks, that you will not believe. That's number one. Number two, he's going to have to show, quote, remorse. Do you believe the president can show remorse? What does remorse say? To admit he did it? To admit he did it? He can't admit to it. If he admits, how do you appeal something and say, I didn't do it, and then say, yeah, I did it, but how do you figure this out? It's a very, very simple thing. And he's got to be able to do this. He's got to be able to figure out how to say this in a particular way. The first thing is this. He's got to be able to say, number one, I'm sorry because I did not know that what I did was a crime. I never, ever believed that what I am doing is a crime. I never believed that this is a crime. I never believed that what I'm doing is a crime. Never. I never believed a non-disclosure agreement was against the law. I had advice of counsel. We paid for the non-disclosure agreement. It wasn't to defraud the voting public. It was to keep my wife from finding out some embarrassing information. At the time we paid the money. I wasn't even involved in it. We said, fine, pay it to Michael Cohen. Whether they logged it as business expenses, legal expenses, it was not my intention. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm not trying to blame anybody. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and I am not involved in bookkeeping. But my intention was not that. But if I in any way broke the law, violated the law, I am apologetic, and I so am sorry that occurred. Do you think President Trump can do that? Could he say that? Because if he doesn't say that, if he says, I didn't do a damn thing wrong, and you're okay, not that he would do that. I would say, can you do that? Can you do that, President Trump? Can you maybe just say that? Can you just say, not blaming it, but not just can you just do that? Because if you can't do that, we're in a big problem. Because it's better when Mershon says, this is the greatest guy in the world. He was so apologetic. Remorse was great. And I recommend X. Now, here's the bottom line. That's all well and good. What's going to happen? Bradley Oplin says, admit to what? Stormy or bookkeeping? That's exactly right, Brad. He would say, I did not know that this was against the law. So if it was, I am sorry. If it was, I am sorry. If it was against the law, if it was against the law, I am sorry. If it was, you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? If it was, that's the story. He's not admitting to anything. He's just saying, I didn't know. Now, what about the sentence? What's going to happen? In talking to my folks and my sources, the people that are very, very in the know, who will remain nameless, the very well appointed places, people who are very, very highly placed. The following would probably make sense. Number one, it is the order and judgment of the court that you serve 6 months suspended. 6 months suspended sentence. Meaning that provided you do not do anything, it's almost like anticipating a probation violation or something, but I'm going to send you, but I'm going to suspend it. It's the most ridiculous thing. I'm going to suspend the sentence. Fine. If you do something wrong, then you're going to be doing 6 months. And it will be pursuant to your period of probation or control. However, I sentence you also, and this is very interesting. Listen to this. I sentence you also to 1 week. 1 week, not in Rikers, not in whatever, but 1 week in confinement, which will be, for example, a room in the courthouse. You show up in the morning. You're released at night. It's kind of like weekend work release, kind of in reverse. You know what I mean? You show up, do your time, do whatever you want, and then it's, quote, a week in jail. However, at the time of the election, when he wins, most probably then, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, can commute the sentence, remit, commute, and say, forget it. I'm going to, out of a sense of decency. And by the way, she would be lauded and heralded for doing that. Absolutely. She would say, I'm not going to do it. So he would end up doing no jail. But on the record, yes. So Judge Mershon, you sentenced the president to 6 months in jail. You did. You sentenced him. It was suspended, but you did that. Now, did you hear recently this notion, this case about this Facebook? Did you hear this one? Did you hear this Facebook thing? Where apparently in the 4th department, in the unified court system, or some court agency official, Facebook or something along the lines, somebody said, I got the word from my cousin and my relative who was on the jury, and they said, we're going to find him guilty. Is that, or is that not grounds for anything? Well, first of all, is it a mistrial? Would it be mistrial worthy if it is true? That's the first issue. The answer then would be, well, isn't the trial over? Yes. How can you have a mistrial when the trial's over? Mistrial means you stop and you suspend the completion of the trial. You can do a mistrial after the fact. So it's not a mistrial. Can you appeal it? Appeal what? Well, appeal the verdict? Probably not. Because there's nothing final yet. You would do this 440 motion, this post-conviction relief, so to speak. And you would go back to the judge, back to Judge Mershon, and you can claim a variety of things. And one of the things which you can claim is the idea of there being juror misconduct. And the juror misconduct is not that. Let's assume we knew who it was. It really was done. Let's assume it's not just somebody who's the person whose name was called an S poster. It's a family show, ladies and gentlemen. It rhymes with ship, so to speak. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, assuming arguendo for the sake of argument, innuendo, an Italian suppository, but I digress. Let's assume that. Would that be any ground? No. What is it? Nothing, really. But what is it? Nothing. It's nothing. Now, had that juror said, I did some investigation on my own, and I went and I spoke with Stormy Daniels, and I did my investigation, and I met with and I found out, that would be juror misconduct. Or I'm having an affair with Judge Mershon, or with Alvin Bragg, or with whoever. That would be a problem. Something where you would have kind of like a Fannie Willis, a real conflict of interest, sort of. But short of that, maybe they drew with lots. Maybe you called impeaching the verdict. Nah, that's going nowhere. Nothing's going to happen. And Mershon did the right thing. He let everybody know. Where is Trump? Where's Trump's counsel? Where's Todd Blanche? Where's he been? Why was he on CNN that first night? Where's Nicholas, the woman who cross-examined Stormy Daniels? Where? There's the other fellow too. Where are these people? Where are these people? Gloria says, didn't Weinstein get a mistrial? No, he didn't get a mistrial. It was an appeal. They basically said, no, we're going to reverse this an appeal. We're going to do it again. It's not a mistrial. It was reverse. You can reverse the conviction, or you can order a new trial. Very rarely do you say, we reverse the conviction, go. We can do it again. Harvey Weinstein, by the way, as horrible as he ever did. You understand this? As horrible as Harvey Weinstein was. The problem is that in the New York, in the New York, you have to corroborate allegations of sexual abuse, and so consequently, you had people who came in who said, "Yes, I had an encounter with Harvey Weinstein in the past. I never brought the charges. I never filed charges, or they weren't filed, or they were, what have you? They were statute of limitations. But let me tell you what he did to me then. I despise that. Prior bad acts, prior crimes. Oh, trying to show an MO, an intent. Oh. Here's my question. With all that Harvey Weinstein did, why didn't they put an end to that? Why are they hanging him out to dry? Why isn't anybody coming to help Alec Baldwin? Why is Alec Baldwin and his wife putting together this ridiculous Baldwin show? Is it to try to curry favor with a potential jury prior to his charges? I don't know. Don't you think we've had enough of these? This is not really a legal point, but don't you think we've had enough with all of these horrible and rancid and terrible reality shows? But my point is, why do you think they abandoned him? Why do you think they abandoned Alec Baldwin? Doesn't that fascinate you? After all he did and all he was responsible for doing, isn't that interesting? Why? Why Harvey Weinstein? I thought Harvey Weinstein would absolutely he was the belle of the ball. I thought they would never, ever involve or allow this guy. Put it this way, Malia or Sasha, I don't know who it was an intern with Harvey Weinstein. I mean, this guy was it. He made Hollywood. And they just forget it, gone. And they knew everything he did. They knew what he did. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. once they leave you, once you are of no use, like a certain individual who might have had a certain mishap in a certain New York federal detention center, whose name I shan't mention, a man who was either dispatched or who took his own life. I think the former is more like it. We're talking about people here, my friends. We're talking about stuff that is so deep. And then we have the Hunter Biden case. Oh, dear God. There is not one defense that is worth. He is beyond despicable. There are people who are the most, I mean, there are people that I know who have been through the most horrid of addictions. But this is, he'll get probation. He'll get the most minimum of sentences. And these family members, by the way, love when some of their family members themselves get out of the, how do I say this? They love when their family members go away and involve themselves in prison so they don't have to worry about them. So the bottom line, dear friends, is President Trump will have nothing interrupted regarding his particular stay or his what appears to be his most certain reelection. Whether you like him or not, whether it doesn't really matter. Can he pardon himself? No, because it's a state offense. He can only pardon federal crime. Only Governor Hochul would be able to pardon him, commute the sentence, whatever it is. And he can pretty much, however, he has used it as a badge of honor. And I do not believe he will do anything in any way to short circuit that. He has made lemons out of lemonade politically and that sort of thing. So we will see what happens. Should this case have been true? Oh, what about appeal? Winning on appeal? He has many, many absolutely valid appeal points. The most important being, believe it or not, the inclusion of Michael Cohen, who was repeatedly referred to as somebody who pled guilty to election fraud. And that could be construed by an appellate court as intimating, suggesting, or insinuating that his guilt, alleged guilt, his announced guilt, was somehow responsible for making President Trump guilty, because after all, that's his lawyer, that's his partner. They must have something, they must be involved in it. That's one thing. Why President Trump never admitted to Stormy Daniels? Does anybody here honestly believe for a moment that he in no way was, dare I say, intimate with Ms. Daniels? No. Come on. So because he denied it, she became now an issue. And she came forward and then put into issue because he denied the NDA. He denied everything. And you had to establish that fact for you really didn't need her, but that could have absolutely hurt him. And why anybody dared even to cross-examine her? I would have never asked her one question. Same thing with E. Jean Carroll. Ask her no questions. Destroy her during closing, but never. What am I going to get out of Stormy Daniels? Nothing. What did we learn? Unprotected sex. It was so tawdry. Why? Because he refused to stipulate to it. Had he said, for purposes of this, yes, we did. That's it. No reason to call her. None. He does things sometimes out of an obstinacy that I don't understand. But from a political point of view, he was in Las Vegas today, Newport Beach, Long Island. I mean, he in California, they love him. We are seeing something that from a political point of view, it is absolutely unsurpassed. So, my friends, I thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate this. And to Bradley Opland, Charlie Calais, thank you so much for your kindness and your support. I'd like to remind you, this is Mrs. L's. Hang on a minute. That's not it. This is Mrs. My beloved wife. This is links to her YouTube channel. And I cannot tell, and her X or Twitter, I can't say X, Twitter as well. One of the most important issues right now that is going on, that is going to blow people away, is when eventually what is being done right now to children in terms of trafficking and child predation, the likes of which we cannot believe. And through her Lynn's warriors and her indefatigable warriors within her, they are fighting tooth and nail 24/7 to make people aware of this absolute horror. This is modern day slavery. This is 13th Amendment violation. This is absolute. This is slavery. So please follow her, Lynn's Warriors on YouTube and Lynn's Warriors on X or Twitter. All right, dear friends, have a great and a beautiful and a glorious day. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to Lionel Legal. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you are subscribed. Lionel Legal. Later on, we'll do Lionel Nation. We're going to be kind of like the both, back and forth. And it is such a pleasure and an honor to be with you. Have a great and a glorious day, my friends. And as I normally say, and I will do it as well because I'm just so used to saying it, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Ta-ta.